This is Love Notes, daily devotions from Holy Trinity Lutheran Church. Grace and peace to you. Well, in the previous reflection, we saw Job looking to his past, finding some reflections about what he had lost and claiming his righteousness before God. Now he moves from the past that he loved to the present, which he despises. The past reflections lead him to now reflect on his present reality, and it begins, "But now they make sport of me." All those people who held me in high esteem before, when I had wealth and riches and could perhaps benefit them, I guess, they make sport of me. Even the youngsters, the ones who have not lived their lives yet, make sport of me. Those who before I would have disdained and assumed they were like the dogs of my flock, not knowing their names, well, now they seem to have power over me. What could I gain from the strength of their hands? All their vigor is gone. Through want and hard hunger, they gnaw the dry and desolate ground. He's here talking about the situation of those who are disdained. And perhaps one of the things that Job's reflections has drawn him to is that he has become like the disdained of this world. He's become like those who are far off from him. Is this a revelation to him? Maybe that there is no real difference between those who suffer and those who do not suffer. You see, his friends have argued there's a big difference between the wicked and the good, and they get their just deserts. Job is realizing that as humans, those who have and those who have not, there is no difference. Those who suffer and those who do not suffer, there is no difference. Good and evil is a construct more for us than it is for God. God has created everything, and so whether Job has everything or he doesn't have anything, he is just like everyone. His questions and the space of the silence that God has given has led him to a new understanding of the world. Job is seeking to make sense of the changes in his life. And that in itself is a signal that there is a change working in him through God. He may not be able to see it yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. In verse 11 it says, "Because God has loosed my bowstring and humbled me." Loosing the bowstring means that we don't have the power to attack, to carry out the battle, so to speak, anymore. God has humbled me. And because God has humbled me, the people of the world have cast me off. On my right hand, the rabble rise up. They send me sprawling. They build roads for my ruin. They break up my path. On all sides, he is being pursued by those who speak ill of him. At verse 16, he says, "And now my soul is poured out within me. Days of affliction have taken hold of me. The night racks my bones, and the pain that gnaws me takes no rest. With violence, he seizes my garment." Is this God seizing his garment, or the accuser? A fine point to ponder. Verse 20, "I cry to you, God, and you do not answer me." That's preceded by being cast into the dust and ashes. Now, dust and ashes is a powerful image throughout the Old Testament. We should always remember that dust and ashes is the very substance from which humanity springs. We are created of the dirt of the ground. And so, even as Job says, "I have been relegated to the dust and ashes," he must bear some sense, at least in the back of his mind, that that's precisely what God uses to make things new. Job is stating his case directly to God now. Job's perception is that he's been cast off. Is that the truth? Is it true that God sees him but does nothing? Or is the silence an action? Is the space provided by the dark night of the soul something that transforms Job itself? Verse 25, it says, "Did I not weep for those whose day was hard? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? But when I looked for good, evil came, and when I waited for light, darkness came." Job seems to be pondering the notion that when he had things and when his life was good, he could work for God to bring about an end to suffering for others. He could wait upon the poor. He could make sure the grieving heard a word of comfort. He could look for good in the midst of evil and cultivate it. But now that everything's been taken away from him, he can't do that anymore. He has to wait upon others, and others haven't showed up. He has to wait upon God. He says in verse 28, "I stand up in the assembly and I cry for help." The assembly is the gathered people of God worshiping, and he cries for help and he receives nothing. But he still cries out to God. From where is his help to come? That's what the psalmist asks. There isn't any other place. And so even if all we get is silence and darkness, it's still God to whom we turn. Amen.